Walk into almost any community facing high-stress conditions, poverty, instability, violence, and look closely at the pastors and leaders serving there. You might expect to find them overflowing with spiritual vitality, but the uncomfortable truth is that many faithful Christian leaders are exhausted. They are marked by anger, frustration, and deep disappointment. We often misunderstand what it takes to survive in these environments because we misunderstand joy. Biblical joy has nothing to do with maintaining a bubbly personality while your community hurts. It has little use for a fake smile that ignores the visceral pain of ministry. The Apostle Paul wrote his most joy-filled letter, Philippians, while locked inside a Roman prison cell. He commanded his readers to rejoice, even as he sat in chains, facing the very real possibility of execution. When joy leaves a leader, it takes their endurance with it. Nehemiah's ancient observation that the joy of the Lord is your strength is a literal description of pastoral physics. Without that inner lightness, the weight of the work eventually leads to collapse. To build true resilience over a lifetime of ministry, leaders have to anchor their identity in spiritual realities that don't shift when their earthly circumstances do. This drift often begins with a single, difficult experience. Ministry delivers hard blows: failed projects, people walking away, resources drying up. In the wake of those blows, self-pity becomes a dangerous companion. It acts as an eager listener, quietly validating every bitter thought and angry resentment. When leaders hold tightly to the injustices they've suffered, those hurts calcify. The painful circumstance stops being something that happened to them and becomes their core identity. The only way to break that cycle is to actively challenge our feelings. Leaders must force their attention onto the constant, God's sovereign care and unyielding love for them, regardless of the week's results. Imagine a young youth leader walking through a tough neighborhood. He feels entirely powerless against the poverty surrounding him. But instead of letting that powerlessness turn into resentment, he moves forward by accepting that he is fully loved and saved by God. Embracing God's love is an active, defensive weapon against the poison of self-pity in local ministry. Then there is the deep, quiet isolation of the work. When a congregation faces intense suffering or tragedy, the pastor is expected to carry that weight. That expectation creates a crushing sense of loneliness. Christ's final promise to his disciples was a constant presence. And curiously, those who walk through intense suffering often report a specific, deep fellowship with a suffering Savior that they couldn't find anywhere else. This creates a paradox at the center of mature faith. A leader can simultaneously possess a profoundly broken heart, grieving real tragedy, and the joy of the Lord. You see this when a pastor walks into an under-resourced public hospital. Surrounded by the chaos of the sick and the suffering, the earthly burden is overwhelming. Yet, knowing Christ walks those same halls with them brings a quiet, stabilizing peace. The weeping remains, but it is no longer hopeless. The assurance of Christ's presence anchors that sorrow in eternal comfort. Perhaps the most personal blow is the pain of feeling completely unappreciated. There is a specific sting that comes from sacrificing your time and family for a congregation, only to have those same people criticize or outright reject your leadership. Divine affirmation is the only thing strong enough to counter that sting. Leaders have to weigh the criticism of their communities against the absolute certainty that they are accepted and delighted in by God. When the young preacher Campbell Morgan failed his trial sermon, he sent his father a telegram with a single word: rejected. His father's reply was a lifeline: rejected on earth, accepted in heaven. When the scale tips toward that heavenly acceptance, Morgan's career didn't just survive, it flourished. A pastor's identity cannot be tied to the approval ratings of their congregation. Contentment relies solely on the Father's delight, rendering human applause entirely secondary. Joy functions as an unbreakable bedrock beneath every problem we encounter. When a leader internalizes God's love, Christ's presence, and the Father's acceptance, their foundation holds. An unexpected crisis, a lack of funding, or a hostile crowd will cause deep pain, but it cannot permanently destroy their contentment. You have to actively fight for this joy. It is a daily discipline to refuse to surrender your peace to difficult circumstances. Make these 3 realities the daily compass for your ministry. Let them guide how you interact, process failure, and measure success. Strategies and trends will fade. The joy of the Lord is the only sustainable source of strength you have for the long haul.